This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
This one is weird. I'm going to tell you right up front, it's a head scratcher. This is more of a let's talk about technology rather than a specific review of this camera, and you'll probably see why as we go through this video. This is the Yongnuo Micro Four Thirds camera. The YN455. It came out in 2021, so it's positively brand new by Micro Four Thirds standards. And as you may notice, it is attached to an Android phone. There have been a few devices like this over the years, probably most recently the Alice camera. And we've also got even some from Lumix with the Lumix CM1, which is a little bit older now. And I'd probably say like the Olympus Air is one in this camp as well, where you just literally have to attach a phone for it to work. It's a sensor on a stick. And of course, Samsung Galaxy have a couple of these devices as well over the years. But there are very few, if any, that I can think of that is a dedicated phone that has a Micro Four Thirds sensor. And that's why when I heard about this device, I was like, please let me just try it. Please let me try it. It's so weird. It's so cool. It's right up my street. So why the heck do these devices even exist? In theory, I suppose it means that you can take the photo, edit the photo, share the photo, and check your emails, I guess, all on one device. So in theory, I understand. I think it sounds like a great idea. But in practice, is it more like we're reinventing the wheel with these sorts of devices? I mean, there's been loads of iterations of them over the years, and not one of them has really stuck. Is it a case of just because we can doesn't mean we should? Well, after having used this Yongnuo device for a couple of weeks now, I think maybe. I had grand designs of making it my only device for a week, and I lasted about half a day before it didn't become practical. But let me tell you more about it. So first of all, the build quality is utterly brilliant. I was so surprised when I got this in my hand. There's a lot of engineering and a lot of quality that's gone into this design. And the screen is huge. It's a 3x5" screen, so bigger than some external monitors that you can buy. So the large screen makes for a decent-ish Android experience, and also great for monitoring yourself when you are filming / pew-pewing. However, this device is bloomin' hench. It's 40 grams heavier than the OM1, for example. So pretty much like one of the largest Micro Four Thirds cameras on the system, this is 40 grams heavier. I saw in a review that someone described this as a brick with buttons. And I'm just like, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. And it is a 20 megapixel with an asterisk that I shall explain momentarily, Micro Four Thirds sensor. And for the phone / Android device, we have on paper some good specs as well. It will take a SIM card, though there's no way to make calls, but you can use it for data and texts, which means in theory, you could live stream from this device anywhere you have signal. It's Android 10, so it's not the oldest version in the world. It's pretty much modern enough to run anything I've thrown at it. The Achilles heel of these devices, like the beloved CM1, which I think is Android 5, is once your Android becomes out of date, apps stop being supported, it becomes a paperweight. So we're starting all right with Android 10 on this Yongnuo device. There's 64 gig internal storage, and you can add your own micro SD slot as well. And there is a mic input and a headphone jack for your audio needs. And yes, the camera has autofocus. It does. It does have autofocus in the sense that it does have autofocus. Is it the worst autofocus I've ever used? Quite possibly.
Terrible, right?
Shockingly bad.
You have to press the red button again because the show button doesn't work. And that's just it. Oh my god.
But it's there. Points for trying. And the battery is even removable. On the Alice camera, this is a little bit of contention with this device because there is no removable battery. So removable storage, removable battery, very well thought out for the user. So is it the best autofocus in the world? No. Is it the worst autofocus in the world? Quite possibly. Is the device hard to hold when you're using it as an Android device? Yes. Is it massive if you're using it as a camera? Also, yes. So the amalgamation of these two things coming together, it does take two separate experiences that would otherwise be good and make both of them slightly worse.
That confused face is the shot right there.
It was a genuine confused face. I was trying to figure out how to change my aperture. It's fine, it's just 4 clicks deep in the app. That's what you need.
And I think not to bash this device too much, because I am so here for camera innovation. Give me all of the weird cameras. Make cameras weird again. I just feel like this has got so much going for it. There's so much that could work brilliantly, but it does just feel like a first generation device at the moment. I am excited to see where it goes in the future, but there are quite a few things to iron out until then, which I shall go through shortly. So good stuff. This device is powerful enough to run Lightroom. So you can take a photo, edit it in Lightroom, share it on Instagram. You can run Instagram on this thing. You can take photographs and put them straight on your Instagram stories, which I have done a few times over the last month. You can run all kinds of apps. In fact, everything that I've thrown at it, it's done fine. Even Filmic Pro for video, which is more of a pro user app. It's a good Android experience and the Play Store is built in. So yeah, it works great. So in theory, having a Micro Four Thirds sensor stuck to Lightroom sounds like music to my ears. That sounds amazing. But in practice, how does that actually play out? Now, this is not my first rodeo. I know when I get a device like this that I need to write headache day in my diary when I'm about to set it up. Here are some headaches that I've navigated for your viewing pleasure.
So there's no way for me to add something to my stories live because I'll have to press and hold the button to keep it recorded. Seems like a little bit of an oversight. Okay, back to the drawing board. So this is what it would sound like in a video scenario. I've got the 17mm Olympus lens and I think I've connected the audio correctly. There's no way to monitor the audio on this app. As you can see, the rolling shutter, even with the slightest jitters, is a little bit inclement. I was hoping to demonstrate a live stream, but yeah, technical difficulties. This is what it would look like if you were shooting handheld on the Yongnuo. You'd get better results on a tripod, definitely. I just hope I'm in focus because there's no focus peaking on the default app.
Yes, this camera has a 20 megapixel sensor. However, you can only access it in the default app. In every other app, like Lightroom Mobile for example, it will only give you 16 megapixels. And yes, this camera can shoot 4K video, but there is no stabilization to speak of, and the rolling shutter is the worst I've used on any device in existence. It even creeps into the photography if you're walking, or even if you're not walking. The rolling shutter is quite something to behold. And yes, there is a shutter button, but it doesn't work in the video button of its own app. It doesn't work in third-party apps, and it doesn't work on Instagram stories. As I may have established that the autofocus is a little bit pants, manual focus is an option, but there's no focus peaking in the default app. So we go to a third-party app. I found ProShot had focus peaking, but that only has a 16 megapixel output and doesn't shoot RAW, and it can't use the shutter button. I thought another great use case for this device, because I do like sharing time lapses on my Instagram stories at the moment. I've been using the DJI Pocket 3, is I thought what a great thing to do. I could just shoot some time lapses on the Yongnuo, and then I've already got Instagram installed so I can just pop them straight online. I tried 10 different time-lapse apps and every single one gave me an output like this. So there's something going on here. I don't know what it is, but it's not usable for time-lapse at this time. And also, at this point in testing, well into my headache day, I realised that my phone can shoot time lapses, and it's smaller, and it has autofocus, and it's connected to Instagram, and it shoots RAW, and it's got more than 20 megapixels, and it's even foldable, so I can use it as a stand while I take photographs. It seems like a lot of faff to wind up back where you started. These things already exist and they're in everybody's pocket. Adorably, there is also a back-facing camera as well. I don't know the purpose of this, because imagine buying this device and using that camera. I mean, why? Why would you? So yeah, that's a thing that exists. Another discovery much more positively is that Yongnuo actually make micro Four Thirds lenses, and they're a couple of generations in now and they have autofocus and they seem really, really good quality. I have got a 17mm f1.7. Unfortunately, it's quite a bit larger than the Olympus equivalent, but in terms of image quality, it's lovely. And then we have the 42.5mm 1.7 as well. I had no idea that Yongnuo even made lenses, so I'm well chuffed. This is good. They're very affordable and they're really good quality. I'm going to be giving away some copies of these lenses as part of my photo contest, so subscribe for that if you'd like to get involved. It's free, and free stuff and cool stuff is always up for grabs. So before I turn this into a roast, there are some great things about this camera. As I say, it's a Gen 1. I can't wait to see where this line of cameras is going to go. For photography, it was quite fun. I took it for a little photo walk around Liverpool and it was fun. The AF caught me out a few times and I missed a few shots, and sometimes I took a few photographs of the floor, which was nice. But on the whole, it did the job. It was interesting, it was a bit bulky, it was fun. And sometimes I've noticed I don't know if it's just the raw files or just a characteristic of this camera, but I find that there is a lot of weird stuff going on in the shadows sometimes in these images. Even in broad daylight, some of them are quite noisy, which is unfortunate. So maybe the JPEGs will render better. Unfortunately, there is no JPEG plus RAW way to shoot, so I can't categorically say that. But yeah, the raw files left a little bit to be desired, to be honest. The experience of changing settings in devices like this is something that I'm growing to severely dislike. I don't like tinkering in apps. There's only one device in my mind that's made the touchscreen and the sort of hybrid experience really nice, and that's the Leica T-Type 701, and that has a really big widescreen touchscreen on the back, but it has dials as well. So you get this beautiful sort of best of both worlds where you can touchscreen and everything's really user-friendly, but you do have dials. Look at this as a side-by-side. If I wanted to change the shutter speed on the Yongnuo camera, this is what I needed to do versus a more traditional camera. You see what I mean? For day-to-day shooting, it's quite a novel experience. I do like the idea that I can take a photo, faff with it in Lightroom and upload it. I do like that I can stick a SIM card in that and do that anywhere in the world. But you could also do all of those things with, say it with me, your phone. And I'm not convinced that the image quality is improved over a phone, because this is where this thing all falls apart. The reason that phones are brilliant at taking photographs is loads of computational features like noise reduction and stabilization to balance it out for long exposures and HDR and things like that. If you could have those computational features with a larger micro Four Thirds sensor, this is where the magic would happen, and this is where these devices start to make perfect sense. However, there isn't the app support for it. There just isn't yet. I'm not saying there never will be, but it's just not there. So what you get is all the bells and whistles with your small sensor on your camera phone, or none of the bells and whistles and a sort of semi-crippled experience with a larger sensor if you use this sort of device. And it's a shame, because having that noise reduction and all the stuff that your phone can do on a larger sensor would be so powerful. But it's not there yet. It's just not there yet. These are the kinds of devices that shoot for the stars, and in reality they barely get off the ground. And it's unfortunate. Live streaming could genuinely be pretty cool. You could stick it on a tripod, lock off the autofocus, you could have a wireless microphone, you could broadcast to anyone in the world via social media. That's pretty cool. However, there are a lot of devices that can do that, like your phone, like a tethered Osmo Pocket. There's a lot of competition in that arena, and this may not necessarily be my first choice, even though it would be pretty good for it. So what about low light? I took 1 or 2 low light images versus my phone just to see how things panned out. And without stabilization, without the computational features, it's have a look. It's alright. Is it any better than a phone? Maybe not. And all the way through this, I would like to point out that I have the Galaxy Fold 5, which is an atrocious camera. So I'm not even comparing this to a good camera phone. Headaches aside, jokes aside, criticisms aside, I don't want you to take away from this video that it's just a failed experiment, because I think it's the first step on a long journey. I do think once things get ironed out and improved and next gen, these devices could be really interesting. I'm not quite convinced it's here yet, but that's not to say Yongnuo have done anything bad with this device. I just think it's suffering from the first gen nature. I think there's a Mark II that's been announced, so I'd be very excited to see where this progresses. Me, as always, I live in hope. I think this is a few iterations and a few killer apps away from being a very exciting product. Otherwise, just as an interesting piece of tech, it's been fascinating to have a stab with it, and really interesting to see a quirky camera, because so many cameras these days are very, very similar, and it's nice to see a company do something a little bit out of the box, even if it's weird and possibly flawed in many ways. I've mentioned my photo contest once or twice in this video, and I run that and all of my website through Squarespace, who are the kind sponsor of this week's video. I love my Squarespace website. It's my favorite thing in the world, and I'm so happy that they are supporting this YouTube channel. No matter what you want to share with the world, I think Squarespace is a great place to begin. You don't need any technical knowledge about how to make a website. There are so many really attractive templates and loads of interesting ways that you can design your masterpiece. I've been using Squarespace for years and years and years, and whether it's a personal blog or you want to make some sort of business out of it, they've got all the features to have you covered, including mailing lists, commerce, it's where I sell my photo presets, blog posts, landing pages, course creation. There's loads and loads and loads of good stuff. So if you're thinking about creating a website now or in the next weeks and months, consider using my link, which is squarespace.com/microphonenerds, so that Squarespace know that you came from me. It helps to keep the light on, and you get a cheeky discount as well. If you use the code microphonenerds, you get some discount and everybody wins. Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video.